Hi, Sheridan. Thank you so much for joining the podcast. I think this is going to be a really powerful episode to dive deeper into nervous system regulation and in a different way than maybe we talk about it here normally. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Let's just jump right in. First and foremost, tell us a little bit about you and how did you come to nervous system regulation and learning about it? Was there a moment? Was there a realization? Was there an experience? Tell us more.
There were a couple of moments or a couple of experiences. To be completely honest, a lot of them were pretty painful. So I kind of got here out of discomfort. When I was 7 years old, I lost all of my hair to an autoimmune disease that has no cure, which kind of laid the foundations for my self-esteem to be pretty low. And that low self-esteem meant that I found myself in my really early 20s in a relationship that was rough. It was abusive physically, emotionally, financially, sexually. It was just really hard. And yoga is what gave me the strength to leave. I kept noticing, oh, I keep showing up for myself. I just move my body. I do it every single day. And suddenly I realized that I'm so much more capable. And I started understanding this concept of, oh, my thoughts are not facts. Wow, interesting. Okay. And so I kind of get the courage to leave. And anyone who's been in such a situation like that or has seen somebody in it knows that it's not something that happens overnight. It is a really big kind of you try and then you doubt yourself and then you try and then you doubt yourself up. Anyway, I did it. I got through. I can tell that story now today with a lot of almost matter of fact, but at the time it was devastating. A couple of weeks after I left, my then ex took his life and I was by myself alone in a foreign country, really far away from my home, and all of the community that I had there was related to him. And so all of the events that unfolded were something that you would see on a telenovela. I find myself even sometimes I'll just mention something and I'm like, oh, that was really not okay. Like that was insane. It was a moment where I kind of got to know, like, I guess you could call it the dark side of humanity and people really close to me. And it had hit at this time where I had been studying community development. I had been very entrepreneurial my entire time there. I'd also spent a lot of time working with NGOs and I just graduated and I was ready to start working. But I was diagnosed with complex PTSD and going into work in an office was incredibly difficult. I got a job in finance with a company in America. And there was a lot of decisions that I made um, that made my symptoms worse. And I was going to therapy and I was like doing all the things that I thought I could do. But it was weird because it was like every time I went to speak with this just kind of, therapist, I would walk away more anxious. I would feel so anxious, so uncomfortable. And it wasn't until I kind of did this Google search. I remember being on my yoga mat and like crying it out because yoga was still helping. I knew that my like regulating my nervous system inside of with practices like that, like yoga and breath work and meditation, like that was good. But it was like that's not enough. I can't live like this all the time. But going to therapy isn't working. So like, what the hell do I do? And I just started Googling and I was really lucky. I found some amazing practitioners and coaches who work in somatic therapies. And I started applying that to myself and doing the deeper parts of regulation of actually addressing those core wounds, pain, trauma, and reorienting my brain based off of what I had experienced, which, we thought it had to do with the events, but of course it had to do with what happened when I was 3 years old and 7 years old and 16 years old and how I understood life since that. And very slowly, I got to turn around and be like, wow, oh my gosh, I've just created an entire life that I love. And then I started coaching and I got exposed to the coaching industry, which is extremely empowering and also questionable. And I had to dig deeper into the somatic therapies to be able to build my business online, be really successful, which I was, and I'm incredibly grateful that I have been. But kind of sort through all of the different advice. Like they give you so much advice. So I kind of like doubled down again into that level of things. And that's how my book came up, Somatic Intelligence for Success. That's kind of how that was born. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a similar intro into working with myself. Yoga is my first really body based practice to get in touch in some way, shape, or
Yeah.
form, and love it, and always will be a foundational practice for me. But can you talk about what was missing from your yoga practice, from traditional therapy, that you found in somatic therapies? What was that shift?
I think number one, the value that somatic therapies have, and I would still say this today, even though I'm not in a crisis state, is that I've found, and a lot of my clients find, there's a unique entry point where we can go in and decouple yourself from your assumptions about the world,
Mm.
because we're and developing so much bodily awareness. It gives you a unique capacity to not keep believing and assuming that what you're experiencing inside of the way you perceive the world is true. So I like to think of it as like your body, your nervous system. Let's just say that it has kind of downloads, in a way, an understanding of the world. And it's utilizing the beliefs that it has about the world, past experiences, to change the way that your body responds. So change how your heartbeat beats, and sensations that you feel in your body, the thoughts that you have, the urges and impulses that you have. And this operating system is literally kind of, I hate to describe it in such kind of crude ways, but kind of like your system on your phone, right? And what this means is that we can keep working with that system, or we can update that system. So maybe the system that you needed, the way that you understand certain sounds, or the way that you understand certain people's body language, or when they do this, when their eye does this, and it's so, so, so below our conscious perception. When their eye does this, I notice there's like a tension in my shoulder, and I naturally move into the overgiver, or the one that wants to take control and care for their emotions. Or if when we slow down and we use somatic therapy, we're able to go, I noticed that I felt that when they did that, there was something that they did there, and I felt my energy move up into my shoulder, and I noticed that I wanted to move forward. Oh, okay. Well, what does that mean? And it's particularly when you're working with a practitioner who goes that slow with you and is that curious and meticulous with you, they're able to say, okay, well, I wonder what that is. The other day, I've done this for years, and I worked with somebody who has very similar training to myself, and I received a session for her, and we did this release, and I was like, wow, it's insane. Like, I forget how powerful this is, because literally I kind of went in, I got like a 10 packet session. I was like, you're great, I want to work with you. And I kind of went in with like this curriculum and this plan in mind. And I was like, great. And then we did 2 sessions. And then now I'm like, okay, cool. So like, everything I thought we were going to go over, we did it now. So like, what's next? And it's not to say that other things can't offer that, but a lot of the people find that those are two unique traits that somatic work has. It can be faster in some ways, because you're slowing down, and it can really blow open the way that you perceive the world. Yeah.
That slowing down, we talk a lot about here, especially when people are dealing with things like chronic illness or pain or symptoms, or just their bodies burn out and high anxiety. We can't tune in to understand what's underneath if we don't slow down, right? And that's so much
Yeah.
what I appreciate the somatic therapy approach. Like you said, practitioner will look at you and be with you and slow your body down. I've worked with one before, and the amount of times where he would look at me and be like, slow down, right? Like, let's tune in. Can you speak to when that might be uncomfortable for someone? Maybe slowing down is almost too much and they don't really know what to do with that, or they're always antsy or something along those lines. Like, what would they do at that point?
Or like, what would they do if they notice that slowing down is difficult for them?
Yeah. Or how would you approach it?
Mm. Do you ever notice this? There's a lot of people that come into this place and they're like, oh, episode on nervous system regulation. I'm going to regulate my nervous system more. I'm going to tick that off on like a box. I'm going to like get it right. I'm going to do another yin yoga. I'm going to like, I don't know, get more B vitamin, or take another, I don't know, like very health wellness. Yeah. At the same time, it's that same underlying part. I had a client last week, and she kind of came to me and she was struggling because she's at that point. I notice every single one of my clients goes through this arch where we do this regulation. Maybe it's a little bit uncomfortable. They're like, okay, I want to do less things. I want to rest more, and I want my business to be successful without me doing so much stuff. And it starts to happen. They start to get what they want. And then they're like, well, now I'm freaking out. There must be something wrong. And say, okay, kind of reflect back to them. Well, yeah, got everything that you wanted. Inside of the book, we have, I think it's chapter 7, we have something called the expansion practice. And sometimes the biggest thing that we can do is work with the parts of ourselves that don't believe it's possible. Because underneath the parts of us that are like, no, 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 it's not possible that it could be this easy, is often a grief for all the times we overworked and we didn't need to. We hurt ourselves and we didn't need to. Or fear, because we developed that part of us that wants to move forward and do it perfectly and do it right, usually quite young, and usually in response to either seeking approval or avoiding rejection or avoiding some type of discomfort. And so we're met with this deep part of ourselves that can keep running the show if we let it. Or not only do we get to start holding it and caring for it so that we can feel that, oh my God, I can finally rest. Some of my clients, I've heard them describe it as like, oh, I feel like I'm finally home. Like it's that part of us that's been searching. It can kind of go, oh my God, I've arrived. Oh my God, it's okay. And then we free up all of this energy to ground so much deeper into the bigger question of why? Why am I here? What am I doing? Because I don't need to pursue work now from a place of achievement or running towards something or running away from something. What the hell do I care about? Now I have a lot of energy. How am I going to apply it? And that's when things get really big and beautiful and exciting.
Thank you for walking through that process, because you're so right. So much of the time when we are burnout, we don't know what to do anymore because we're working so hard, our bodies are shutting us down. There can be a driver behind it of, well, we don't know anything different, right? And that's that stress place of the nervous system. So kind of to your point, people can say, well, just do these things and you'll regulate and you'll feel better. And, everything will, it's just it's the answer, right? To do these things to regulate your nervous system. But it's less about the things. It's more about how are you arriving? How are you tuning into yourself? How are you getting to know yourself? So I went on a little bit of a tangent there, but what do you think some people get wrong about nervous system regulation? What's the misinformation out there?
I think we covered one, which is thinking that it's all about regulating and it's also all about doing less. I think
Mm,
my podcast has an episode on like the 3 things that perfectionists get wrong about rest.
mm,
And a lot of it is like, there's the classic of like making it a to-do list, but now I'm struggling to like pick one out of the blue because there's so many. There's that one. And I think the biggest thing that I've noticed lately is not quite understanding that thing that you're working towards, that energy that you have, it can be coming oftentimes from a place of looking for validation or looking for approval, like a pain. It can come
mm.
from pain. So no matter how freaking hard you try, you're always going to be in pain. You're always going to be tired. What we can do instead is hold that part of yourself, let it learn to relax. And then what happens is then it frees up all this energy for you to go and do something constructive and life-giving in the world. There's 2 types of energy that can run inside of your body. One is based off of fear and pain. When you take action from that place, when you believe thoughts from that place, they will deplete you. They will cause tension. You will feel this in your body. You'll look at this inside of your business if you have one. You won't sign clients. It will feel off. It will feel like you're forcing. It will just feel like, this isn't quite right. Nobody will respond. You'll get on a sales call and they're like, something isn't, I don't know why. I just kind of, they'll like say yes, but then they'll say no. And you'll know like something was off. Whereas when you're taking action from your true whole core self, which is based in love, confidence, clarity, and not spiritual bypassed love, but just, it's almost like unquestionable. You don't know when you're doing it because it's so natural for you. That's when things open up and that's when you achieve that feeling of rest that you want, that feeling of I'm enough that you want, that's when you start. That's like that type where you go, oh, like this thing just kind of happened. It was like really easy. It was just out of the blue. It was just like this. It was just, everything fell together and it just happened. The person I wanted to work with, we started working together. I got an inquiry. Those things that you do from those places come from flow. And what a lot of people do is they come to this work and they come to whatever their goal is, building a business, healing their body, working out. They come from this place of, I've got to get it right. And so from the get-go, they're off.
That last part, I have to get it right, is so essential. I mean, I'm speaking from experience as well as I know many, many people listening to this, because a lot of us have that perfectionistic part. We have to get it right part, and we've been totally burned out because of it. And so, yeah, when we approach our nervous systems or a healing space from that place of needing to get it right, it doesn't really work necessarily. Like, it's not really not going to settle in. So, can you speak to that part of when you see someone approaching it that way of, okay, I've been doing all these things and I can't seem to get it right, or what's wrong? Like, what am I missing? How am I, what do I do here? Like, how would you approach them? How would you help?
It depends if the person is aware that that's actually this driving part of themselves, or if they think it's themselves. There's this thing that happens where we might be like, oh, I'm a perfectionist. I have one. Yep, she's there. I know her. But then we still orient to everything that we do from this space of, well, I have to. Like, I couldn't not do that. I don't know. Can you give me like an example of something that you would do or you would see that is around perfectionistic?
Yeah. So, a lot of people listening might have an idea that they are, but more often than not, they don't really see where they're operating from that place, from perfectionism or like trying to get it right or trying to rush things and make it happen and get out. Like, they're just in pain and they're struggling and they're burnout and they just want it to be better. So, why wouldn't they like do all the things, right? And go through steps A, B, and C of what they've learned online about nervous system regulation. So when someone's in that place of, okay, I'm doing the things, and I mean, I've kind of heard there's this perfectionistic piece, but I don't really know if that's me. Is that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so there's that sentence of that you could end, which is okay. Every single action that you're doing right now, if you don't do it, what will you feel? We can apply this to our diet. We can apply this to our exercise routine. We can apply this to our work. If you don't do it, what will you feel? What would happen if you stopped?
Not doing enough.
Not doing enough. And then what would you feel if you weren't doing enough?
Like a failure, but that's not a feeling. I would feel disappointed, shame, guilt.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
we get curious, okay, well, where's that coming from? And
Mm-hmm.
do you want to carry that around? And you can understand that failure isn't a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are still learning that skill. But yeah, shame. Okay, so it's driven, that action,
Mm-hmm.
that specific action you are doing is driven out of wanting to avoid shame. So it is therefore in the second category
Mm-hmm.
of not based in love and confidence. There's nuance around that statement, but that can kind of tell us, maybe this is not as helpful to me as I think, because there is this cycle of perfectionism, or even that sentence of like failure. We end up looking for evidence that we are failing because we're working with the belief that we will. And so our nervous system, our body is filtering for that because it's working from I'm actually going to fail, so I better get this right because I am going to fail. So we start doing those things, and then as soon as something doesn't go perfectly, we're like, ding, 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 ding. I'm failing. I'm going to fail. I'm a failure. I'm actually wrong. I've confirmed it because this person or this thing, or I woke up and this was wrong. I'm confirmed it. Okay, now I've got to drive even harder to get it right, but I'm actually not going to. So now I'm exhausted because, oh my God, I never get it right. And we're just creating this cycle of dysregulation. Whereas if we can hold that part of ourselves and not take action from it, and that doesn't mean letting go of the actions that you do, it's just doing them with a different felt quality, then what we're doing is out of genuine care and love and nurturing, of ourselves. And that feeling tone changes the type of action, changes the way that you do the action, changes the way that your body responds to yourself, your thoughts, the feelings in the world. That is regulating.
Yeah, it's that reaction towards, that turning towards, right?
Yeah, with that nurturing, loving inner adult that we all have, that we develop. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, beautiful. For our listeners who might be new to the term, how would you define somatic intelligence and its relevance to personal and professional growth?
I love this so much. Somatic intelligence, think of it like emotional intelligence better. We have this understanding of emotional intelligence, but it only came about in 1995, I think.
Mhm.
The somatic intelligence is a deepening of that.
Mm.
It is your capacity to align and understand your body's wisdom and your signals, and then understand what it's communicating and create a life where it thrives. But more importantly, it's your way to get in touch with the way that your body functions at its best, especially in relation to how it functions in the state of society. So we have this cellular intelligence that's running through us, and it has gifts and skills that only you have. Like literally, you're the only person to have them. You also have needs, and you are the only person to have those specific needs in that specific way. And if we look at cells, how they work on a biological basis, and we look at the understanding of communities, they have two things in common. When they follow what is true for them, they all work well together. They work in harmony. There's no struggle. Cells work in harmony. Yes, there's disease and decay, and sometimes that's part of the cycle and that's part of harmony, and sometimes it's a sign that there is a external factor or internal factor putting them into illness. That's a whole different podcast, but they have a capacity to work in harmony, which means that when you get in touch to what your body is experiencing, how it communicates, what it needs, the wisdom that it has, you act from that place. You know how to read it. Knowing how to read it is extremely intelligent. Not many people do because it's just fear that they're reading, as we spoke about with the perfectionist. When you get in touch with it, you take action from your place. You may not understand it. It's not going to feel logical at first, but you position yourself to be in the place of the most health, of the most wealth, not just money, but that true understanding of like abundance and I've got everything I need. And happiness and success. Does that resonate with you?
It does. I hadn't heard really, I mean, it makes so much sense, right? Yes, we've termed emotional intelligence, but there's so much more around that body connection, the somatic therapies, right? And the mind body connection that, yeah, somatic intelligence is how do we tune in and read our bodies in a way and get to know that. That's exactly what I help and teach clients to do in the mind body healing method is understanding how to read our own nervous system, what tells us we're in a certain state. And we can only be aware of that if we're tuned in. And then we can help ourselves shift or change or whatever we need to do or come home to ourselves. And so that intelligence of the body is so important. We've so much of society and culture is cut off, right? We're pretty much taught to be cut off from our bodies and signals and to drive in a certain way. So I think it's so important to share and to understand and to bring out to the world. So thank you.
Yeah, it's a skill that we have to actively learn and then actively choose to orient to. And sometimes that can be difficult because the whole entire world is telling you put your attention, either for women, a lot of it is put your attention into how you need to fix yourself. And then it's like put your attention on your phone, put your attention on all of these things. But that skill, that interoception of what is my body telling me? I remember when I started nervous system regulation on training, she was like, you have to go to the toilet literally whenever you want to. And I, having worked since really young, had learned, no, you go to the toilet when you're on your break. And so even that feeling, and I'll have clients who have worked with me before and they have maybe like vaginismus and kind of things around that. And it's like, okay, cool. Your homework is to go to the toilet when you need to. And they'll be so confused. I'm like, that's part of regulation. That's part of tuning in. What am I aware of inside of my pelvic floor? Okay. Okay, now I need to go to the toilet. Okay, I'm going to go to the toilet instead of like waiting because you can send three more emails. Or yeah, it's incredibly important and a radical kind of act to come home to.
Yeah. Yeah. For those who feel disconnected from their bodies and don't really know where to start with tuning in, like we're talking about, how do you suggest they begin this journey?
Start with the question, what am I aware of? And look
Mm.
inside of your body and find one thing you're aware of and do that 3 times a day. Put it on your phone. And a lot of people, when they feel really disconnected, are going to feel numb. Numbness is aware. You are aware of something. Congratulations, you found it. Write down what type of numb. If you had to describe it to a friend, what would it be like? Would it be icy? Is it like a big wall? Is it like a wall, or is it like there's a container? Is it like heavy? Like what type of numb? And sometimes what you are aware of is my hands are cold, but just building that pathway of noticing what you might feel disconnected, but you're aware of something. At the baseline, you might even just be aware that you feel disconnected. So keep looking, keep going back, and just, what am I aware of now? Okay, what am I aware of now? Doesn't have to be fancy, just what are you aware of?
Thank you so much for that, because it doesn't have to be so incredibly complicated, or we really don't have to go to the depths of trauma just to tune into our bodies, right? Or to help ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes it can be easy and fun.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything around getting in touch with our body, somatic therapies, that you feel like is really important to note before we end here?
Maybe that's it. Sometimes it can be really fun.
Mm,
It doesn't have to be a heavy process.
yeah.
I made a really big vow many years ago of knowing that there is space and like care for my clients' tender emotions, but
Mm.
also it doesn't it doesn't have to be this big awful thing to start going inside, even if it feels like it has to be. We just need to be careful around the way that we go around it, and also be careful when you're going into things related to shame. I see a lot of things on the internet and, exploring that perfectionistic side. Shame is the most dysregulating emotion. It will put you into collapse very easily. You would have seen this a lot with your clients. And there's some advice out there talking about like kind of embodying your shame or like doing embodiment practices around shame. I always caution to that because that heavy feeling that it has can really pull you under and put you into what we would call a functional freeze, where you're kind of going through the motions because you have to, but your whole body actually feels quite in danger from this big emotion shame that maybe you felt on Tuesday and now it's Sunday and you don't know why, you just feel off. I always say be really mindful around that and work with a practitioner to teach you how to be with those emotions, because not that there's something to be afraid of, but your body isn't meant to hold them. Shame is a socialized emotion. So we're actually supposed to be sharing as how it's one of the ways that it heals. There are 3 ways that it heals. I think of them as like the 3 C's. So try to share that one with people.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you for saying that, especially because so many of our listeners do struggle with fatigue and that shutdown in their nervous systems. And so it is really important to recognize that, yeah, it may not actually be safe for your nervous system to go straight into that and hold it on your own. And it's really important to have that space held by someone that can work with you. So, yeah.
Yeah, we often do not have enough capacity to deal with our really big emotions. That's why we
Yeah.
developed all of these interesting coping mechanisms. So the practice is to share that with somebody else so that your body knows, oh, we have a capacity, there's 2 nervous systems here, I can look at this, I'm not going to die. And that is a human trait, it is not a flaw.
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Share a little bit about how people can find you and what you're offering right now.
Yeah, come and find me, guys, on Grace's podcast, on my podcast. It's called
Mm.
Sustainable Success, and we did a really good one that is out. I think it's episode number 211, and we spoke. It's called The Lies of Productivity. So come and find that, Sustainable Success. You can also find my book by going on Amazon and searching Sheridan Ruth. But if you find my podcast first, you'll be guided to everything else.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sheridan. I really appreciate it. And we will talk to you soon.
Thank you.